Yeah, I want to talk to you about Chris, but let's start by just introducing you. So we have Nathan Forrest here today, who is an old friend.
We're rolling?
Yeah, we've been rolling, but I'll find a place to bring us in. But why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, because this is going to be a different kind of show for us, because we're going to talk poker, baby.
Talk poker, and you usually talk country music and
a lot.
I got a lot of family in the music industry, but that's not me. But I love playing poker. Been playing poker for 25 years since college, and I love poker and marketing. We'll talk a little bit about marketing strategy, and maybe we can talk about how to use marketing to get more people involved in poker.
There you go.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things I had to speak to you about was your recent experience playing the main event.
Yeah.
So for people that don't know, the World Series of Poker main event is the golden moment in anybody's career, and it's when everyone goes to Vegas. So tell everybody about your experience.
A lot of people put it off, and I'm one of those stories of somebody every year. You know how we do. Like, we'll play it next year, or we'll play it next year, and then every year for the last 10 years, and then the responsible part of you kicks in. You're like, well, I won't put up 10,000 for the main event this year. I'll do it next year. And so this year, I actually turned 50 on July 5th, and so I just about a month before the main event, I decided, I'm not going to be I'm not going to put it off anymore. I'm going to do it. And I was like, why? I got plenty of people that'll invest in me. I already knew that I could get like 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 buddies to invest in me, and that would be easy. Or I could just put up the whole 10,000 myself. But then I had this wild idea. How about, since I'm turning 50, one night, it was just like about 2 weeks before the main event, I was like, what if I got 50 people to put up $100 each? I'll put up 5,000. I'm not going to play if I'm not investing at least 50% of myself. I'll put up 5,000. I'll get 50 people to put up $100 each. It might take me 2 or 3 weeks to do it, but that will be fun. And I'll have a team of 50. We called it the 50 at 50. Team 50 at 50. And so, but then what happened was I got like that 50 people in like 48 hours. So it was a lot of fun. And that's when I reached out to like Bobby Bones and some local people. Matt Rogers, who's the Titans PA addresser. He's a friend of mine. He's the game day addresser at the Titan Stadium.
Oh, okay.
He was part of the team 50 at 50. Chris Moneymaker, who's the 2003 main event champion. He's a friend of mine. So, and then of course, family, friends, and stuff like that. And so it turned into just kind of a really fun thing to have a team of 50 people with me. It ended up being like 52 because there was a couple people at the end who were like, I want in, So it was a lot of fun. We went to 3 days. We played 2.5 days, and then ran Ace King into Queens, and needed to win that one race to have a stack and have a really good chance of squeezing into the money. And so when we got knocked out, of course there was 10,200 and something entries, I think, maybe 10,100 and something entries. We got knocked out with about 2,600 entries left, and it paid like 1,500 spots. So we were within 1,000 of getting our money back plus some, and we just needed to win one critical pot. But we did that without really ever hitting that heater. You're a poker player, and there might be a few poker players watching. We never did really hit that heater. We were grinding for 2.5 days, and so anyway, it was a lot of fun.
So you enjoy because you're a cash game specialist.
Yep.
So you have to change gears with tournaments.
Yeah, I played a lot more tournaments when I was younger. I've had success in tournaments, but never like with the bigger tournaments, like the main event. And so I understood the grind. I understood what it would take, being patient, waiting for hands, that kind of thing. Not picking the wrong spots to gamble. I understood how to recognize the players. My bluffs were getting through. So that's the one thing with the main event. Everybody's so scared to get knocked out. I recognized those players, and so all my bluffs got through for 2.5 days except one. There was one spot where I could have saved a few chips, and but we won't really get into strategies today unless you want to later. But so I felt good about it. I'm going to play it. I don't know if I'll play it every year, but maybe I'll play another tournament or two instead and spread out that 10,000. But yeah, we'll keep playing a lot of cash games. Since then, it's only been a month. Yeah, right at about a month. We came back to these some of these local games in Nashville, and we've made back our investment in some in the local cash games. So
there you go.
Yeah, so we're in good shape.
What about the drama surrounding the final table? I want to ask your opinion on Sims and players using it, especially at the final table at the main event.
People are making a little bit more. It's one of those things. It's just a bad look for poker, but it's not as serious. It's not cheating. So there've been a couple articles out there like, main event champion, controversy cheating. It's not cheating. It's just one of those things where the poker world, the organizers, poker players, professionals, they don't want people like pulling up their phone right with their hand and checking to see a chart to see, okay, if I have ace eight of hearts, I'm supposed to raise 2x the blinds or whatever. You're allowed to do it in between hands. So like if I fold my hand, I can, but that's where the controversy is coming up is, do we even want that allowed? Right now it's technically allowed, although there's a gray area with floor discretion, which is what people are talking about, because people didn't realize that he was going back to the rail to even check stuff like that. So he was in the middle of that gray area where they don't really want you doing it between hands, but that's more of an optics thing. So,
well, what did they think? He was running to the rail after hands and checking a laptop.
Because most years, every year so far, you have people on the rail. Like if you're one of my, let's say if I made the final table and you're on the rail, I might run over and ask you, hey, what did the opponent have 35 minutes ago? Because it's on a delay.
Yeah.
And you can tell me what my opponents might have had like 35 or 45 minutes ago. So there's that element. There's also an element where you're allowed to talk to your friends. If you fold a hand or if you're on break, you're allowed to talk to your friends and coaches about strategy. So maybe somebody has a tell. Maybe somebody, hey, when he does this, when he raises big, he always has it. Or when he does this, he's bluffing. So that's perfectly fine. But we're entering into this new realm of poker over the last few years where there are these solvers, these abilities to become more perfect in your play. You can never, in poker, what's beautiful about the game is you can never be 100% perfect. You can never know with 100% sure, unless you're cheating, what's in the other person's hole cards. But you can become a better player by knowing a little bit the sizing and the math and knowing what to do based on your chip stack. So if your chip size is changing, that's where the solver argument comes in.
Right.
Is you don't want people studying and knowing exactly what to do on the next hand.
Yeah.
And so that's where the but it didn't change anything. It didn't help the guy win. Maybe a little bit. Doug Polk talked about it on his podcast. Maybe it gave him an extra 100,000 in equity, but when you're talking 10 million, but he wasn't cheating. We're talking poker, so anybody watching that's like, hey, was the main event champion cheating? No, he was just
doing it. No, because I give him credit. He was doing it in the wide open.
Yeah. Exactly.
So you have to absolve him of cheating there, but there should, I look at this whole thing with sim and poker as someone who's kind of been out of the game for a long time, doesn't play as much anymore as, we used to. I look at it, I'm like, man, it's almost ruining the game in the sense of like the same way AI in music.
Yeah.
It's a tool, it's here, it's not going anywhere. So don't fight that. But understand that it is going to corrupt the spirit of music like it's going to corrupt the spirit of poker because, again, everyone's going to be a damn bot.
Yeah. Yeah, you want to leave the entertainment and the fun and the optics of a fun game in the spirit. Yeah, you want to keep all that in there and do your studying at home.
Yeah.
Do your studying. If you got a 15-minute break in a poker tournament and you want to go to the hallway and do your studying, that's fine. But yeah, as I think we're finally starting to come to the same page as a poker community that, hey, let's figure out a way to keep it off. But then, then people are getting into, should we keep phones off the table? And I hope we don't go there because a lot of us like to listen to music on the phone. We want to be able to text. If poker's a lot of folding. Poker is there's a lot of dead space in poker. It's not like being a musician. When you're on stage, you're pretty much active the whole time doing your craft, unless you're on a quick break. Poker, you might fold 18 hands in a row, or at least 8 or 9 hands in a row sometimes. And so you want to be able to get on the phone and text, maybe listen to music, maybe watch TikTok or YouTube. So hopefully they don't just completely take phones away, but it's an interesting discussion and it's getting more and more.
So are we in a second poker boom, much like what happened post 2003?
I wouldn't. That's a fun topic because I wouldn't call it a poker boom, but like Moneymaker's doing good. He just won another tournament down in Uruguay a couple of days ago. He won a Triton event a few months ago for over $1 million. Got third in another Triton event a couple of days later for like $600,000. So it's interesting that Chris Moneymaker, who was pretty much the cause of the poker boom, he's crushing again, and people are seeing that, and then they're seeing the main event fields are getting bigger again. The last 2 years have broken a record. The last 2 years, this year was the biggest ever, and so there are these things that are bringing people into poker. What's funny is we talk about the solvers and the things like that. A new player that doesn't have the hundreds of thousands of hours that like me and you have playing poker. they can become better faster through the aid of YouTube tutorials, solvers, websites, apps, and all this stuff. So kind of like learning any game, they can learn faster.
Yeah.
So no, I wouldn't call it a poker boom, but I would call it a I don't know. Maybe we need to come up with another name for it.
Well, the numbers are so big. It's surprising that you don't call it a boom. Because I look at it like, and this is weird. This is from a sociology standpoint. I look at 9/11 and I look at COVID. And 2 years after both of those events is when poker really took off.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
And it's almost like when society suffers something all is one.
People want to get into the trenches, do something fun, do something,
And
like,
you become a little bit more
something
risky.
Anybody can do.
You want to put shit on the line because you know how fragile life is.
That's a good point. I've never heard anybody bring that up. The fact that the poker boom, Chris won it in 2003, 2 years after 9/11.
Yeah.
And that's a good point. We could call it, I'm sure there are people out there calling it poker boom, to promote the game of poker. So whatever you want to call it, yeah, there is a re-energizing, there are a lot of young people coming up or confident in playing the game of poker. I'm a big proponent. I think everybody should play, poker at some point, even if it's once a month, even if it's just with family at home. It's a great game to be social. Where else, this, you go to a casino or a home game or whatever, where else can you be at the same table and have a conversation on this side with like an 80-year-old man, on this side with like a whatever, middle-aged woman, or maybe 2 seats over a 21-year-old kid that has a completely different mentality, real cocky in life or whatever. And over here, a guy that owns like $10 million in businesses or whatever.
Yep.
I can't think, maybe church, you go to church, but you don't have conversations at church while church is going on. There's places, country clubs, where you can meet people.
Yeah.
But you're not, like, if you're at your country club, you're not really hanging out with the 21-year-old kid and the 70-year-old lady. So that's what's unique to poker, is you can meet these people, and it's a good thing to be able to network and meet people that ordinarily you wouldn't connect with.
You run the full spectrum of life and society at a poker table. And I've always told people you can learn more at a poker table than you can in any classroom.
Yeah.
The old stories.
Yeah.
How to manage the reason business people love poker is because you really learn how to manage personalities and how to really, it's a negotiation.
Communication, the art of networking and communication is one of the most important skill sets in business. And, I always say that I'm not sure, I'm a marketing strategist. So poker has taught me a lot about being better at marketing. Mm-hmm. And also the business world has taught me how to be better a poker player. I don't know which comes first, but you learn a lot from each.
Who is on your Mount Rushmore of poker players?
To play like or meet or play with?
No, the 4 best ever.
Oh, just who is... That's a good question, man. The 4 best... Well, you'd have to separate cash games and tournaments, It's hard not to just immediately put Phil Ivey up there, because when he's the best at both, mm-hmm. maybe not... Maybe people can argue, okay, maybe he's, hadn't done a whole lot the last few years. He did finally get another bracelet this year, first mm-hmm. one in a while. But that's because he spent a lot of years in Macau and playing in games for millions of dollars. And so I've never really thought about who the top 4 are, because there's 10 or 15. As soon as you got a local guy like Chance Cornuth that you could argue that is kind of earned his way up there. But I don't know how many cash games he plays in. And but he lives here in Nashville now. So you have guys like him that are crushing tournaments, and then guys like like Alex Fox and his partner over at Chip Leader Coaching. But there's so many players, then you got guys like Patrick Antonius, who don't play a lot of tournaments but crush cash games. But I can't really answer that on the fly, because I'm the type, I would take about 30 and really need to figure out who to put up there. But I'm not going to put Daniel Negreanu up there. But I mean, as far as if you added a third element to it, like best tournament player ever, best cash game, and best proponent for the game, I would put Negreanu in there. I would put Ivy, Negreanu, Money. I mean, you might just go ahead and throw Chris Moneymaker in there, because he's he helped create the poker boom. He's still crushing poker. He has a name that's well known outside of the poker world as well as inside the poker world. And then maybe just go ahead and throw Phil Hellmuth in there. I mean, I don't know. If I had to just say something on the fly right now, I would say Ivy, Negreanu, Chris Moneymaker, and Phil Hellmuth.
Okay.
and I'm obviously leaving out. How do you leave out, Eric Seidel, and how do you leave out, all these guys that
Doyle.
are crushing Doyle? There's so many guys.
Chip.
You say that, Chip Reese, on and on and on. Where how do you leave this guy out? And it's like, well, if you're going to pick a top 4,
I have to give props to Chance Corneth. He's an amazing player to watch. And I know a guy from Birmingham. He used to play with us in Nashville. You probably would recognize him if you saw him. But Mark Davis, and I think he's had two huge tournament wins, and it's after he was being coached by Chance.
Mm-hmm.
And then Money, how much fun is he to play with? Because he's so aggressive. And I was watching the 2003 World Series a while back. I rewatch it because I have it on VHS.
Yeah.
Everyone that talks about how lucky he got, they forget about hands like the one that he had with Dutch Boy, where he called an all-in on the flop with 2 trays, and it was for his tournament life.
Yeah.
And Dutch just had king-queen.
It was like I forget. I remember that hand he called. It was either the flop or the turn where Dutch bluffed him with king high.
Flop.
King high. Was it
king
on the flop?
Yeah.
And there was obviously an over card of threes or a couple of over cards, and he just put him on nothing, and he was right. But that particular hand wasn't for Chris's tournament life, but it was for a big chunk of his chips.
No, he was all in.
He did that particular hand. Maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong. I'm
pretty sure you're wrong, but
no, you're yeah. Anyway, it was either for his tournament life or a big chunk of chips.
Big chunk of it.
But it might have. No, you might be right. Yeah. Anyway, you might be right.
Yeah, but
that's risky. That's one of those spots in poker where it's like, can you call all your chips with a hand that's like, well,
3 overs.
Yeah.
Maybe a deuce was on the board.
Yeah.
But I've always just respected whenever I got to play with him, and it wasn't tons.
Yeah.
But it was in that 5-10 no limit. Man, that boy is aggressive.
Yeah.
He'll put you to a decision for all your trips.
He's still aggressive. Me and Bruce were just talking about this today, that he's got a different gear. He's always had that gamble. He had that when he won the main event in 2003. Maybe a little bit too much gamble with skill. Now he's combined over the last 20 years, and especially over the last few years, he's been working with coaches and playing a lot, playing everything from cash games to small tournaments to Triton tournaments with the best in the world. So when you think about somebody that has consistent experience in all types of poker, there's not a lot of people out there like Chris that are consistently playing with all types of people. Most people, they only play in the high rollers. They only play with the best of the best, and they're not playing 2-5 no limit in a local card room. Chris runs a tour, Moneymaker tour, so he's constantly playing with people that play in all different levels, but and crushing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love to see how far he's come, and he's still in that's one thing about you. You're still in the game. I think the hardest thing people have to understand is like how hard it is to really do it over a 20, 25 year span.
Yeah.
And aren't you the guy that taught or exposed Chris to No Limit Hold'em?
Exposed him, introduced, he wrote about it in his book, introduced him, we kind of like, Chris has had some, coaches over the last couple of years where he's invested a lot of money on just becoming a more elite poker player.
Oh, really?
But when we were playing our little local card, local game, like at my brother's apartment on the laundromat down at the corner of Blair and 21st. There's still a laundromat there. My brother used to rent the room above the laundromat right there. And we'd be playing poker, and then the room would start shaking because the dryers downstairs would turn over. But so we used to play there a lot, and then like at Chris's apartment. And so there was nights where me and him would be the only one left with chips. We'd play each other heads up, because everybody else would go broke or leave or whatever. And but then I introduced the whole crew to Texas Hold'em, because at the time we were just playing, Chase the Queen and Anaconda and all those fun Bloody Sevens, all the fun games. And I was like, no, we need to start playing Texas Hold'em, because that's what they play in the casinos. And so I introduced the crew to Texas Hold'em, and then who would have known that one in our crew would go win the main event and and help poker become what it is today.
The laundromat you're talking about is right across from the Army supply store?
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
What is your opinion of the mentality it takes to be a great poker player?
You got to be patient. Got to have discipline. Same thing as building a successful business, but you got to be committed to learning. Got to be committed to paying attention and learning. You have to be able to adapt to multiple situations. Like if you're in a business and, one customer might come in, you got to kind of communicate with them in a little bit of a different way than somebody else. I learned in sales a long time ago. If somebody's talking loud, you got to, hey, yeah, let's talk. Well, this, XYZ of this product. But if you're talking to a 55-year-old lady that's, a little bit quieter, you got to, well, this. So you got to, same thing in sales and business and poker. You really got to adapt to situation. This person with my specific hand, I might want to bluff here. But if it's against the person to that person's left, it might not be some good. Might not be as good of an opportunity to bluff because they're playing every hand. They don't care about money. There's what's interesting about poker is there's so many different elements to it that you learn something a little bit new or different every time you play.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is also you sit down and play with somebody that you've never played with before, but you've also played with that person 100 times because they're the same exact type person, based on different things, based on how they hold their chips, based on how they talk, based on you find out what their job is, on and on and on. There's so many different things. Do they have a hoodie on and are they playing, are they shuffling their chips like a pro, so, professional player, you can find a few more bluff spots than you can against a amateur player that's just playing every hand. You can still bluff anybody every once in a while in the right spot. But at the end of the day, it takes a commitment to learning the game. And that, when I say learning the game, like 1,000 different things. But discipline, patience, and focus. And patience is a big thing. It's a big thing because you got to be able to, especially the main event, you just can't do well in the main event without, understanding that you might need to fold 20 hands in a row, Not necessarily 20 hands in a row because you're going to play the blinds and you're going to raise. You're going to raise in late position, if they fold to you. So, but what did I miss? You're a poker player. What did I miss?
For the mentality?
Yeah.
Patience. I think you said it.
And you got to be able to have fun but have fun, but stay focused at the same time.
The hardest thing for me when I was learning the game, and I was learning from great players like you. I remember one time watching you, and I learned more in that session playing Omaha 8 or better. Because at that point, that was your specialty.
Yeah, yeah.
Is it still that way?
Well, I would. I don't know if I have a specialty. I would because we play a lot of PLO now here in Nashville, a lot of PLO games. So I've gotten better at PLO, but then Hold'em, no limit Hold'em, because more people play it. Sometimes that's what you have to play because that's what people want to play. But we play a lot of Big O. So now it's pot limit.
See, I don't know Big O.
Now it's pot limit 8 or better, for people that are watching that don't know what the heck we're talking about. In Omaha, you get 4 cards, but now you can get 5 cards. Yeah. When you get a 5th card and you play high and a low, that's what Big O is. And so I enjoy playing Big O, but since more of the players are playing pot limit Omaha, we play a lot more high only now. So I wouldn't say I have a specialty, but I win at each type of game. So, but yeah, we used to play a lot of limit, high, low.
Yeah, and there's not a lot of it now, I don't think.
Yeah.
It's harder and harder to find.
Yeah.
And how great is our friend Robin? I don't know if people appreciate this, but we have a friend named Robin who used to deal at the World Series.
Yeah.
She dealt the 5,000 rebuy PLO event.
Yeah.
You have to be for the TV table.
Yeah, she came along because I dealt. I'm one of those people out there. I've dealt the World Series before.
Yeah, you have?
And we were talking about it at one of my tables. Yeah, I've dealt the main event. 3 or 4 times.
I didn't know that.
Dealt it down to the final 3 tables one year, and a year that my buddy Adam Levy made the final 3 tables. Only time I've ever been nervous dealing is he flopped a set and a guy gets all in against him with a gut shot wheel draw. And that's they get all in, turn their hands over. And that's the only time I've ever been nervous dealing, like in front of the TV cameras and lights, is because I got my buddy over here and I'm putting the cards out there. And so anyway, but yeah, Rob, so I had quit dealing the World Series years before Robin came along and she started dealing the World Series. And then we met through Dewey and some other local people. And then,
bro, were you dealing the series when y'all had to wear those green visors?
No, that was, I did, the first time I ever dealt the World Series was 2001, I think. The year that Chris Ferguson won it. Yeah. And it wasn't too far after that. Yeah, that was the first time I ever went to Vegas. We dealt in Tunica in the World Poker Open. So I was down there playing, and they said, "Hey, we need dealers. You want to be a dealer this year?" And I had never had dealer training, anything. They need dealers. So I jumped in. I was like, "Sure." Filled out the paperwork, all that stuff. Had never dealt other than on the kitchen table. Went straight into a 5-10 PLO game. My first night, and straight into a PLO game. And then that year, there was a crew of us let's go deal the World Series. I'm like, that sounds fun. So let's go to Vegas. So we drove to Vegas and dealt the World Series that year, 2001. But I did 2001, didn't go back to Vegas for the World Series until like 2009 or 10, something like that, and dealt a couple of years. And I actually dealt to like Dan Bilzerian back then. There's funny YouTube video. I did a search about a year ago, and I don't know why we were looking up Dan Bilzerian content, but I was looking up Dan Bilzerian. Me and a buddy of mine, and out of all the videos of Dan Bilzerian, there was a couple of him playing the main event before he was Dan Bilzerian.
Mm-hmm.
It was like before he was, the Dan whatever. And guess who's dealing to Dan Bilzerian on this little clip showing him, and he looked completely different. He had his little hat on, his standard hat, and I was like, that's me. It's like, but.
So I think that he's one of the characters, not necessarily a person that was mimicking him, but like I bet he played Molly's game.
Yeah.
He was probably part of that little rotating. Yeah. Has he made as much as he says he's made in poker?
I'm sure he's made a lot, but who knows what he's actually made. I'm sure that's a different skill set that we didn't talk about earlier. Like at the end of the day, if you're a seventh best poker player in the world, but you always play against the top 6, then you're not going to win as much as maybe Dan Bilzerian has. Maybe he has. He has played. Even Chance Cornuth admitted that Dan reached out to him before he played one of his matches against a billionaire.
Yeah,
reached out to him for coaching advice. So I'm sure he's had games where he's made millions, 100%. But who knows how much he's lost? That's one of those things nobody will ever know. Maybe he has made $50 million in private games, and maybe he's only lost $20 million, whatever. No different than any of these, the best of the best in poker. The guys that you look at the list that have made 50, 60, 70 million, well, they've also spent 30, 40, 50 million in tournament buy-ins to earn that money.
Right.
Not taking anything away from them. It just is what it is.
Yeah.
And so it's the same way that we don't really have a knowledge of how much Daniel Negreanu or Eric Seidel has really lost in buy-ins. Same thing with Bilzerian and cash games. Nobody will ever know, and you just have to wonder and speculate.
Well, we were talking about this before the podcast, and it's really the fascinating thing about poker that I wish I would have understood when I was playing more, is that everyone wants to go to Vegas and play against the best. You can make an entire career just on scouting good games where you have an edge.
Yep, laying low.
I think most people think that great poker players in Vegas are like the absolute best, rather than they're actually guys who know how to scout games and find their own edge.
I know more guys. I could name off guys that have just been crushing poker for years that nobody's ever heard of, and they're probably making more money than most of the well-known pros.
Yeah.
As far as profit, because they're playing for 100% of their own money, because they can, they're staying in games where they can, just like me, I always play on my own money. The main event this year was the first time I ever even got but whatever you call it, investors. Obviously as poker players, we sell off little percentages sometimes just so our friends can have a sweat. But the main event this year was the first time I ever got a team of investors. And so the same way as there's so many players that just crush cash games and their own little smaller tournaments and stuff like that. And then, of course, there's some poker players that go on and get investors and stuff so they can play bigger tournaments.
Do you feel like it helps you to have some skin in the game and some backing, or?
It depends on what you're playing.
In a tournament.
Depends on what you're playing. If somebody were to say, Nate, you want to go to Triton next month and play 100K, then obviously I'm not going to do that on my own. It wouldn't be financially responsible for me to put up 100,000 of my own money to play a tournament. But if somebody says, I'll put you in, and maybe you just put up 10% of it, whatever the numbers are. So there's certain situations, the World Series of Poker, there's really good players that they get enough in backers to cover $200,000-$400,000 worth of buy-ins so they can go out and play all the World Series of Poker events. But I think there's a lot of poker players that actually might lose EV because they're not just grinding cash games for 100% of their own money, and instead they're chasing the glory of tournaments where even if they do good in a tournament, they're only getting 30, 40, 50% of it, and you'd have to crush 2 or 3 tournaments to really do better than they could if they just spent hours and hours grinding cash games.
So you don't feel like there's a difference for you as how you play?
What do you mean?
When you have backing?
That's a good question, because Bobby Bones actually asked me this on the, are you going to, because you have a team in the main event, are you going to be a little bit more nervous? And it was a little bit more exciting to have a team of 50 people with me
Yeah.
with me, behind me, backing me, investing in me, believing in me for the main event. And, you know, it was only $100 each. And I had $5,000 at risk of my own money. So for me personally, it didn't change anything. I played every hand to the best of my ability. I was focused. And you know, I think for me, for a lot of players, it might change a little bit. For me, I think I might perform just slightly better if I have other people's money on the line. I don't know, because sometimes when it's your own money, you know, you just pick moments to gamble, and you're like, it's probably not the smartest spot to gamble. But I think for most players, they probably play a little bit better with other people's money. But then there's some pros that don't. You know, this is a good time. There's some pros that, because they have other people's money, I'm on a free roll, you know.
They're just splashing around.
They're splashing around just to either get chips or move on to the next tournament. That happens a lot, you know. So that's a whole new conversation in its own, you know.
Well, I hear the conversation so much, and I don't know if I've ever been fully backed in like a game, so I don't really have anything to compare it to. But I've had people that were like, I'll go in half with you, and I seem to do better on those. Yeah. But you see some people that cannot play with their own money and can play great with others, and then totally opposite.
Yeah.
Great with their own money, suck with others.
Yeah. Most people just don't know how to play.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about poker, is it's no different than like opening up a pizza franchise or whatever. You could compare it to almost anything. Being a real estate agent, if, you know, out of 100 people that become a realtor, probably, I don't know what the numbers are. I'm not even going to be, but more of them fail than succeed.
Yeah. 80% in real estate quit within 3 years or 5 years.
That doesn't surprise me. Poker's the same way. If you know, it's a great game. If you learn the skills, just like chess, you can guarantee profits for as long as you choose the right games, play the right style of poker. But for most people, they're going to lose at poker because they're just never going to commit to learning, you know, what it takes. And if I had to guess a number, you know, 90 to 94% of players lifetime are probably losing poker players. But that's okay, because a lot of people it's just their recreation. It's entertainment. I have friends that they admit it's just my recreation. Some of them are good and actually make money just being a recreational poker player. Some of them don't even remember what they lost last week. They don't keep records, and so they don't care because they just want to have fun, kind of like an arcade, kind of like a golf match, kind of like going to a baseball game and spending, you know, $500 on tickets and beer and hot dogs. No different. So that's the beauty about poker, is you can decide, do I want it to be my entertainment? Because I just once a month, I like going to the local home game, or once a week on a Friday night after I get off work. It can be your entertainment, or it can be a career where you know, make plenty of money.
So speaking of entertainment, what's the best music to listen to at a poker table?
Well, me, and I actually mentioned this on the Bobby Bones show also, I don't listen to as much music as I used to, because I like to hear little things and little tales and stuff. But when I do, if I get bored or if I'm in a long session, maybe I'm losing and I'm playing, but it's a really good game, so I'm not going to leave after playing 8 hours like I probably should. But because the game's really good, I'm going to play 2 or 3 or 4 more hours. I like to listen to worship music.
Oh, really?
But sometimes, but not, you know, or like some EDM, you know, you know, I'm usually not listening to country. I listen to a lot of country music in my car at home.
You do?
At home, but I'm usually not listening to country music at the poker table. But it's not the mood. Usually, sometimes I just flip through whatever Apple and find like an EDM track that I've never heard of. For me, I'm more like I like to find something random and just go with it.
Bro, I have never heard two different answers: EDM and worship music. It kind of depends on if you need a little energy, right, or if you need to just relax and focus. And worship music helps me focus. Yeah, helps me. Worship music's great, man.
Yeah,
it all sounds the same, but it's all uplifting. Yeah. So anyway, but what are you doing in business and marketing? And is it affiliated and tied in with poker? No.
So I've always I studied marketing in college, went to Belmont here in Nashville. And of course, after getting out of college, we didn't have internet. We had like Yahoo. The internet was just coming on when I was in college in the 90s, but it wasn't like a major thing. But then of course, as the internet grew and grew and grew, I started learning a lot more about marketing. And so I help small businesses, and my specialty is people with like home-based businesses and online businesses. People with little one-person, 2-person shops. I help them with their social media, with strategies, help them to maybe tweak one little thing, branding. I've helped people build multiple 6-figure businesses just tweaking their branding. Sometimes you'll find somebody that's good at like making money in like a network marketing business or an affiliate marketing business. Those, they're good at selling something, but they've never really learned how to go beyond their friends and family to sell it. There's a lot of that. And so you teach them how to actually market. You don't have to spit and vomit all over your friends and family to sell your network marketing business. You can actually build a brand online. And so I've done that. I've done it for myself, and then I've showed other people how to do it. And so it's a fun, it's not my number one focus right now, but I do, I do it on the side, and I have like little spells where I focus, for a few months on it, and then I kind of take a break and travel and play poker, but poker and my online marketing business allow me to the freedom and flexibility to focus on one more than the other and scale back on the marketing business and play more poker and run poker games here in Nashville.
I don't know if I asked you this earlier, but do you think poker makes you better at marketing and business?
Yeah, for sure. Because you learn the patience aspect, the communication aspect, and but not so much as anymore. Like, it's not like, okay, if you go play more poker, are you going to become better at business now? But the history of poker playing has helped, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's not like, I learned something. But sometimes what does help is the networking aspect. You'll meet somebody that maybe at the poker table, maybe they've heard of an app or a strategy or something. Like, well, you meet somebody that owns a laundromat or something. You meet somebody that owns a social media business. You're like, well, what's working for you? You can have those conversations at the poker table, and you'll learn things by networking. That's what you learn from the poker table is, learn perspectives and ideas and pick up tips. You're like, oh, let me try that in my business.
It's very much like the golf course.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Just more people.
Good analogy, except you're playing with 10 people, nine or 10, and not 2 or 3. I've never been a big golfer, but
me neither.
Yeah.
But I just know that everyone always tells me, you got to go, that's where the business gets done. You got to go on the golf course. And I always told them, I've been at a poker table. You can achieve the same thing there.
Yeah.
Of course, and that's why businessmen love poker.
Yeah. If we mentioned real estate, and businesses. If you're in business, if you're in real estate, if you're in something where networking is key, I encourage anybody watching this podcast. Maybe there's people that tune into your podcast for the country music aspect of it to learn a little bit about country, or maybe they're watching this right now or listening. I encourage anybody to find out a place where they can learn how to play poker. And since we're talking about that, I work a lot with Card Player Cruises. Good friends of mine, Mark and Tina Napolitano and Jan Fisher and Linda Johnson. They own Card Player Cruises, and it's probably the best place I can think of where you can take a vacation with your family, and they have lessons where you can learn from. Linda Johnson does free lessons on every cruise, and she's a Hall of Fame member, a bracelet winner, professional poker players, made millions in her career, not only from poker, but on the business side of it. And somebody can take a cruise with us and learn how to play poker in a fun, relaxed atmosphere. And then they can go to the pool and dive in and get some sun on the top deck of the cruise ship.
Yeah.
So if I was to pick a place where, Nate, I'd like to learn how to play poker, come join us on the Card Player Cruises, and learn how to play poker from some of the best.
Does Linda Johnson have red hair?
She used to.
Is she a tournament? Was she also a big tournament director?
Yeah.
I know who she is.
Yeah. She has a dark, like a lot of women, I'm sure she's had different colors hair, but yeah, she's reddish, dark reddish hair. Yeah.
I know who that is. And she was one of your also 50 for 50.
She was one of the 50 at 50. Yeah.
50 at 50.
So we had 2 Hall of Fame members, Chris Moneymaker and Linda Johnson. We had Bobby Bones, it was a good little all-star cast. And I was disappointed that I didn't care as much about losing my $5,000 when we missed making money in that tournament. But as well as it doesn't matter how good you are in a tournament.
Yeah.
You just can't control the card distribution in one tournament.
One tournament is like one hand of poker. At the point of the hand, it's just 50-50.
Yeah. It comes down to, and you just got to be good enough to not have that 50-50 shot on in the first hour or the first day or whatever. I made some big folds. We don't have time to talk about the hands, but made some big folds, got some big bluffs through. But yeah, we had an all-star crew, so that was fun.
So hold on, I got to backtrack. Chris is now in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, he got inducted a few years ago.
Oh, man, congratulations to Chris.
Yeah, that's pretty
awesome.
sick. Yes, now the controversy is, or the conversation, not really controversy, is should they start letting in more than one person each year? They're only letting in, I think, Patrick Antonius just got in this year.
So one.
They're only letting in one person each year, and a lot of people are wondering, well, should they let a player and an industry person in? Because like Norman Chad and Lon McCarron aren't in yet, Matt Savage. So there's industry people that aren't in yet. When I say industry people that are known for, even though they're players too, but they're known success-wise for helping run the engine, the poker, working in the industry. And so, but yeah, they need to start letting in, a couple people. Maybe if they start letting in 2 or 3 people, maybe me and you can work our way up there one day.
Yeah, I'm not getting in there, buddy, but I love the game and I like promoting it. So that's why I'm so happy to have you here.
Not too many cash game specialists like us that are, getting into the.
Man, I've been out of it so long. I just love talking about the game because I think it's the purest game that's ever been invented. It's not a sport. I don't need that debate in my life. It's a dumb debate. But as far as how you live your life in this world with
it's the closest thing to a sport without being a sport. I don't even know does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't.
It's a like chess isn't a sport. Poker's not a sport, but there are poker players that will call it a sport because the competition is so because there's a skill version to it, like sports.
Right.
All sports have skill, and in the short term, a lot of luck. But Steph Curry misses 4 or 5 shots in a row every once in a while, but when he shoots, it's skillful. He's going to hit 40% of his threes or whatever,
The closest thing poker gets to a sport is a tournament when it becomes 7 days long and that grueling. But again, then it's just the mental. It's just the mental fatigue.
It's a game. It's just like chess. But chess is all skill. Poker is all skill in the long term, but mostly luck in the short term.
But the thing about poker that I love compared to chess is chess, you have perfect information.
Yeah.
You have everything right there in front of you. You don't have that in poker. And that is so analogous to life.
But what's interesting is I said earlier, like you're never, with poker, you always have incomplete information. But when you become good at poker, you actually, without seeing through the cards, without having that 100% assurance that person has aces, sometimes that person has aces.
Yeah.
Like there was a hand in the main event this year where we knew one guy had kings and we knew the girl had aces. And, it's like, so you have that assurance because of your skill set without having that level that you have in chess that's like, I know what I'm going to do 3, 4, 5 levels down, but so anybody watching, if you're not a poker player, you can your skill sets consistently increase by playing poker. You become better and better and better, and you pick up on things and the math, the understandings of the math and the why people do the things they do, and so then you get to this level where you're like, oh, okay, I can beat this game, and yeah. Anyway,
that's when you're in a bad spot when you think you can beat the game.
Yeah. Well,
it requires so much humility.
You get to a point to where you win. Like if I pulled up my records and my my analytics, I keep track of every game I play. I probably win about 60% of the games I play. But but I win more. There's games where I win a lot. So even though you're only winning about 60% of the games you play, you're winning. Consistent income. Even though you lose 40% of the time you play, if I go play poker 10 times this month, I'm going to lose 4 times out of 10 that I sit down and play poker. It might be a 2-hour session, might be a 6-hour session, might be a 10-hour session. And it's just like the stock market, except you're playing poker.
We have to give a shout out to Bruce because I have not seen him. I have not seen him in so long. But earlier you were talking about dealing a hand and you didn't want to deal somebody. Yeah. You dealt me my worst beat ever.
That's a good story. Yeah, I remember. Did I deal this one?
You dealt it.
The quads when.
Yeah.
So we're talking about our friend Bruce Perry, who I just got off the phone with, and Bruce was Chris Moneymaker's little brother at UT, and I met Bruce's cousin, a guy named Dave Whitus, because he went to Belmont and became my roommate, and so this is how we all connected. We started playing poker together. So. But yeah, Bruce used to play in our games here in Nashville. Still does every once in a while. He's a family man now. He has 2 kids.
Really?
He has 2 kids, little girl, little boy, and successful real estate entrepreneur here in town.
Awesome.
Owns properties all over Nashville now. And so, but yeah, I remember I'll let you tell the story since it was your beat. But I know what you're talking about.
It killed me because it was my case money on the table. So it was one of those moments where you're like, oh shit.
Yep.
You dealt me 2 jacks and you dealt him 2 trays. And the flop came jack high, with a jack and a tray, but jack high. And I'm like, I got this.
Yep.
And the plays out.
Set over set.
Set over set. And then turn, I don't know what the turn was, but it was still jack high board. And I'm just like, and Bruce is coming hard at me. And I'm like, I got it. And then the river comes the 3. And
you have jacks full, the nut full house.
So I have the second nuts. And you're just not thinking quads. So I think he's also full, but obviously if he's full, I have him beat. And I'll never forget, I had gone all in, and he goes, how much do you have left?
He hesitated.
He goes, how much do you have left? So I counted for him. Now I understand he has the nut, so he's screwing me now.
Yeah.
So anyway, so then he calls and
for the non-poker players listening, it's a slow roll.
It's a slow roll.
But when you're friends, you do things like that every once in a while because it's kind of like an entertaining thing. But
right. But the best part of the story is Robin asked him after, why the hell did you ask him?
Yep.
Why'd you slow roll him? He goes, I want to know how much I was getting.
Yeah. Why'd you ask it? So when a guy goes all in poker, usually and you have quads, usually you just say call and then you show your quads and win the pot. But at this situation, he said, how much do you have? And that's the funny part of the story is that we asked him later, why'd you ask him? He said, I wanted to know how much money was coming my way. Why'd you ask him how much he had? I wanted to know how much was coming my way.
It's just so funny sitting across from you today because I haven't seen you in so long. I'm looking at you like this guy dealt me my worst beat. Because I think people need to understand that you win a lot of hands in poker.
Yep.
And you forget them. The ones you never forget are the worst beats.
The worst beats and sometimes the best beats,
that you've given?
Yeah. I think I've only made quads over nut full house. I think twice. I know it's happened. Yeah, I remember one time it happened in Vegas at the Horseshoe. One time I was playing with my buddy Jeff, and I did it to another guy. It might have been 3s also, like 3s over king. He flopped 3 kings, I flopped 3 3s, and I made a 3, but it wasn't a big pot. And so I remember that one, and I think I did it one other time. The only time it's ever happened to me where I ran was Jeff, our buddy Jeff Myers.
Yeah, he's one of the best known
but it was a limit game, and a limit you can't go all in on the player.
Oh, okay.
And I think he turned quads on me or something, and by the time I raised and he re-raised, and I like 4-bet raised, and then he raised back, I knew when really good players raise you a second, third time, then you know what they have. And we laughed about it because I think to this day that's the only time I've ever gotten a nut full house, the top full house, beaten by quads.
Bro, that's the game. Limit hold'em. If you're going to have it happen to you, that's the game you want it to happen in.
Yeah. Because
do you know what I had twice happen to me on Poker Stars? Set over set over set.
3.
And both times I had top set.
And it held up.
It held up.
That's pretty wild. That's super rare. I've never seen that. I've dealt a lot of hands and played lots of hands, and I've seen one of the most rare. I remember a hand years ago where it was set over top 2 pair, and I was at the table just watching. I wasn't involved with that hand. That's really rare because now you're dealing with the case cards on the top 2 cards.
Right. That's
super rare, and I've only seen that once. But I don't know if I've ever seen set over set over set. I'm sure I have, like after all 5 cards are out. I just don't remember. But that's the thing about poker. Sometimes no matter how good your hand is, you run into that cooler. That's a cooler. You had the nut full house and Bruce had quads. You deal with it and you move on, And that's why you never have case money on the table. So you were like Mike from Rounders. You had your case money on the table. As far what I remember, you stood up and like sent the chair through the wall.
Yeah, I didn't go through the wall.
Not through it, but
the next the next day, a guy that I love named Martin goes, I thought that chair was going through the wall.
Yeah.
Because I jumped up, and I'll be honest with you, I did not know you that well at that time, and I was still new to poker. I was sure I had been cheated.
I thought, oh, really?
Yeah. And about a week later, I don't know if you remember this guy, but he used to have parted blonde hair, and he was a dealer. A poker dealer.
Let's clarify that.
And he pulled me over while the 1530 was going on. He was like, you want to see what I can do? And I'm like, yeah, show me.
Are you talking about Chris? Chris McMahon? Was he?
Yeah, I think that might be who it was.
He came in later.
He dealt 10 hands, and he goes, seat 3 has aces.
Yeah.
And And then I was
he's
like,
passed away since then. Yeah, I don't know what happened to him, but he came in and worked that game for like a few weeks, and then he started working other games in town.
yeah.
When he was working other games in town, and that's when I found out that like that stories like that he like knew how to like do things like that.
Yes.
But which is always, you know.
And it made me more suspicious of you because I was like, well, this guy knows how to deal. Nate's a very good dealer. Did I get cheated?
I'm a good dealer, but I've intentionally never like even for entertainment purposes, I've never like, you know, taught myself or talked to somebody about like how to like set decks and things like that.
That guy, Chris,
there are dealers out there that can do that. So if you're playing big money in poker, you got to really look out for it. And but I've never, other than that guy Chris, you know, God rest his soul, he you know, I've never known anybody in Nashville or even in casinos. Like I've never met somebody that I just like, this guy's a card mechanic, you know. But it's something you got to look out for. That
guy Chris, I remember one time I went to a game in downtown at a hotel and he was dealing it and I didn't even get in the game. But I went to the hotel room because it was the penthouse of a hotel, and they told me it was used to be the room where Elvis.
Yep.
And I'm a huge Elvis fan.
Had a poker game, a different poker game here in Nashville at the top of the airport inn. Now it's right next to the Titan Stadium. Now there's a different name for it. I drive by it on Saturday nights going to another poker game here in town, and I can't remember what they call it now, but it's still a hotel, and they used to have a game up there that was crazy.
Yeah.
The suite that Elvis used to rent out.
Yeah, but I wouldn't play. That's the only reason I went. I was like, I got to go see Elvis's old penthouse.
Yeah.
Okay, before we get out of here, we're going to share your socials. But I always ask people this question, since you've made it a long time in poker and you're into marketing and strategy. I want you to give people advice from your perspective on the drive it takes to enjoy a long, remarkable career in whatever discipline you choose.
Enjoy it. You want to enjoy it. Like I've taken breaks from poker because there was periods of time where I just wasn't enjoying it. You know, like whether it's because you're going through a down in business and poker, both you go through down. What's the word? Like, you know, down swings. So, you know, businesses aren't performing, competition's doing better than you are. Poker, you have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sessions in a row where you lose. And so you need to enjoy it even through the downswings, and you'll get out of them quicker, especially in business. You know, businesses that I've run, I've noticed that when I'm not enjoying it, I'm not doing as well. My clients, I've had to give them a reason or two, whether it's new branding, new marketing strategy, set up their Facebook page, Instagram page in a way that attracts more people. So you need to enjoy it, and you need to pay attention to not necessarily copy, but model what's working for other people. So that's the same in poker and business. Poker especially. Pay attention. If you watch a stream online, that's a good way to learn how to play poker. Watch and see what the best player. Figure out first who the best players are, and then see what are they doing. Why did they just raise with a 10 and a 9? Why did they do that? Well, they don't do it every time. In business, why does this person set up their Facebook page this way? I can model the header. They have a picture at the top of their Facebook page that has a link. If you click on it, it goes to a link that goes over to a website or whatever. So there's all these little strategies. So pay attention. So enjoy what you're doing. Pay attention to what the successful are doing, and then tweak and adjust consistently. That's big in poker and business. Always tweak, you know. So what's working this week might be different in 3 months.
Yeah.
There's different strategies. In poker, people are raising smaller now. They're not raising as big. They're not bluffing as big, you know. They are in certain spots, you know. So there's just consistently things that you need to change about your game because your opponents are changing. In business, people are changing, you know. Are your clients spending more time on TikTok than they are on Instagram? Are people, you know, so that's enjoy, you know, and what's another one for longevity? Just have fun, enjoy, tweak along the way, and then look for new things that you can just add spice to each one. Is it a new poker game? Is it a new type of game where you can have a little bit more fun? You know, like I enjoy playing Omaha 8 or better at the Orleans in Vegas because it's more fun just to relax. But if I'm playing for profit motive, I would rather be playing a higher limit PLO game here in Nashville or in at the Wynn in Las Vegas. You know, so there's understand when you're times to focus and times to relax a little bit and kind of intertwine them. So I hope that helps. Longevity comes down to just having a reason. And then the last thing I'll say is just have a purpose behind it.
Yeah.
Have a purpose, a plan. And so when you have a purpose, it's easier to plan stuff.
Yeah.
It's easier to plan what cash game in poker you're going to play or what tournament. It's easier to plan what you're going to do next in business if you have a purpose behind it. Is your purpose to help more people, solve a problem, or is it to strictly put dollars in your bank account so that you can take care of your family or pay for your kids' education or take more vacations or to open up a second business? So have a purpose behind all of it. And of course, with me, we haven't talked about this today, but a big piece of my purpose is my faith. So everything I'm doing, whether I'm playing poker or building a business, I want it to, without hammering it on people, without preaching, I want it to be a part of let that light shine through me so that like people, maybe they see a little bit of something.
Yeah.
Why does this guy have so much fun playing poker even though he's losing? I've had people ask me before, like, why are you always, I've never seen you in such a really bad mood. So the big part of my purpose that helps me have longevity in poker and business is my faith.
Yeah.
Now, there might be some people that say, well, you're gambling when you're playing poker. Well, well, no, not necessarily. But
yeah, there's a long line of great poker players that all found God, and to have to put those at conflict with each other is ridiculous.
Yeah. A lot of people can learn a lot about, you can, your relationship with God can grow closer or further apart when you're at the poker table. The same way in your business. When you're running your business, you can do the wrong things and spend too much money on marketing and business and do things that take you away from God, but then you can do things in your business that can draw you closer to God. So poker is just like a business.
I think about poker for what you're saying. The importance of having faith in poker is because sometimes it's a lonely life.
Yeah.
It's a very lonely thing because it's just you.
Yeah. Just like jog, I go on jogs, 4 or 5 days a week. And those are the times that I don't meditate, but those are the times that I take time to talk to God. Sometimes when I'm playing poker, if I'm folding hands, I'm, take a minute and say, I need to pray for family and friends right now, so anyway.
Yeah, and when you get ace king versus jacks all in, everybody becomes a praying man.
So that's the lesson of today. Play more poker so you can, build a better relationship with God.
Yeah. Well, it's a good lesson to be taught. Hey, will you throw up those websites real quick? We got like 3 more minutes, so we'll just throw this up real quick. So for people that are just listening, you can find Nate on Instagram, Nate Forrest Marketing. That's 2 R's in Forrest. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Just like Forrest Gump.
There you go.
But same on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, Nate Forrest Marketing.
And then you have the website over there, Ben. Boy, I'll tell you what, you got a strong shade game, don't you?
I like those yellow sunglasses because they made it through a house fire where we lost our house I grew up in 2019. And those sunglasses made it through the fire. And then we had to demolish the house because it was a total loss. And found 2 pairs of them on the ground. And I was like, you know what? So they have a little bit of purpose, meaning other than just a pair of cheesy yellow sunglasses.
Okay. And for people that are just listening, this website is NateForrest.com.
NateForrest.com. You can find a couple things that mean a lot to me. The Generation Y, friends of mine in Oklahoma City, they travel around to different high schools around the country and help kids that need it the most, people that are going through bullying and home issues because of being in the wrong crowds and things like that. They go in and help. So always encourage people to stop by and donate a $5 bill. And then we mentioned Card Player Cruises. They're down there. They got a link down there at the bottom, cardplayercruises.com. If you want to come have a good vacation and learn how to play poker and just have a whole lot of fun, come hang out with us on Card Player Cruises. And then for the people that have a home-based business, I've got a couple links on there that can help you out, all kinds of cool stuff, just little tools and things like that, marketing strategies. And if you're looking for a new way to make some money from home or using the internet, you'll find a button on there somewhere.
All right, man. Well, I'm sorry that time ran out on us, but I'll put all these links up under the description. And it's been awesome having you back on,
Millions
man.
of people will come watch and listen, right?
I hope so. Over time, it's going to be there forever.
All right. Yeah, I had fun.
Appreciate you, brother.
Let's do it again.
Bye, y'all.